Hey, Dave, great to be with you. I have wanted to ask you some questions because we've got our white paper on Workday coming out. And one of the things that's right at the beginning is the challenges with getting data out of Workday and kind of forming it into some kind of analytics ready data asset that can be used for analytics, planning, data science, et cetera. And so I was curious if you could tell us in the technical terms, why is this so hard?
Yeah, cool. So the hardest part prepping the data for analytics is having all of the right valid data. So for Workday, that comes down to how do you find all of the points in time that an employee has a slice of interest where something changes on their record that you need to know about. The way Workday works, it does not give you a full history when you query the API. It gives you a point in time of an employee. So if you query a worker, you'll get this is the valid data for that worker for that point in time. And to build their history so that you can then show their analytical trend over time, you have to then pull that data for all of the relevant intersections of time that you need history for. So the hardest part in prepping the analytical data ready for, or the data model ready for analytics is finding all of those points in time to pull data for those employees.
Yeah, RaaS reports, which we use in a limited fashion because we rely primarily on using the API and interrogating it the way you described. RaaS reports, you could run that same thing, but what would happen if you did this with a bunch of RaaS reports? Like, what does that approach look like, and why is it better to pull it off of the API using the interrogation method and then restructuring it on a time series the way you described?
So you can get to some of the similar information via a RaaS report. You can look at the change data for like some of the business process data around movements or like promotions, demotions, transfers, that sort of thing. And then attach to those events what the worker attribute data was to look at some history. But it's still only as good as the business processes you're tracking. It doesn't capture all of the history. And so if someone has for example, a historical manager update where a manager moves position and the new manager is encumbered into the new position, it won't necessarily update all of the workers that are attached to that position. So you won't necessarily get those updated records in your data set when they happen. You'll get them based on when the action associated with the promotion or demotion or transfer happened. So it isn't. It is in those cases. It's not true effective data.
How have we built up that expertise, over time? I mean, how many people do we have that are just kind of been at this and figuring this out and working with it? So what's maybe like our accumulated experience?
I think Chris keeps a running total of hours. I think he calls it something like 10,000 hours or something. But there's a team of probably 5 or 6 people that work across it from time to time. There are a handful of people that are dedicated to it all the time, and then people come in and out as needed.
Right, and then I guess our customer success team also is accumulating a lot of knowledge on how this stuff works and what goes on with it over time. And so the whole kind of offering becomes something that I think is very difficult to try to replicate if you're to build it yourself. I think it'd be a very unusually skilled data engineer inside a given company that would be able to figure it out. That's kind of what I've learned from speaking with them. Is that something, would you agree with that?
I mean, it's certainly possible, but
Yeah.
it's not the norm, not the usual, not what we would see happening at most companies. The companies that I have seen be successful doing a build versus buy have had to somewhat reduce the scope of the data that they're looking at. So the most
True.
successful ones that I've seen have actually just gone with taking a snapshot approach to Workday and understanding that historical updates for analytical purposes won't be available.
Right. And what about the integration of other data sources and in the structuring of the data model? Is that key to being able to feather in things like survey, recruiting, learning data, skills data, whatever? Is that all? I mean, is the data modeling essential for, I guess, being able to receive those and join those other data elements?
Yes, that stuff can be quite complicated. The way Workday works, it has just effective dates. It's just from dates, no to dates. So trying to then join that into other data sources can be tricky, can be difficult. It's all possible. It just requires you to understand how to intersect time series data. Uh, but
Across
yes,
two,
it
across
can be.
multiple sources.
um,
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
across multiple sources. Yeah.
Cool.
So if
All
you
right.
have performance data and succession data from different
Yes.
places, and you need to then intersect that onto your worker data, understanding how that physically has to happen. Yeah.
Good to have a chance to talk with you. And so this will be something we'll put into the white paper, and hopefully people get a taste of some of the technical elements that are at play. So thanks, Dave.
No worries. Sounds good.